having prayers. Treading water that they drowning. My head on a swivel, yeah. It's only really my surroundings.
Hello and welcome to episode 244 of the Smash Accept podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me on Twitter at DynastyDadFF. We got a great show. You know, the Dynasty future is so bright. I got to wear shades. I got my kids' Pit Vipers on. I'm ready to roll. You know, we had an amazing 2023 class. Then we go to 2024, and it's 8 to 10 deep with fantastic players. We're going to tell you today how good this 2025 class is because a lot of people are starting to sleep on it. They say every year we play it in a cyclical way where it's like, okay, well, when 2023 draft rolled around, 2024 is going to be better. And then when we say 2024 was there, we're going to say 2025 was going to be better. This year's class has some absolute studs that we're going to cover today. Nobody better to chop that up with than my main man, Snoog. How you doing?
Doing good, Dan. I'm excited to finally get a deep dive into this 2025 class. I mean, this running back class we just had was so terrible. I was already watching 2025 running backs in replace of the 2024 running backs all through the winter time. So I'm pretty familiar with a lot of these running backs, especially the big four wideouts are really good. We got some up and coming risers, guys like Isaiah Bond and stuff. And then we got kind of a weary quarterback group that there'll probably be one or two guys that rise to above expectations, Shedeur Sanders and some other guys we'll talk about. But overall, it's going to be a really damn good class for one quarterback leagues because you got about 6 to 8 running backs, maybe even 10 deep, where you're like, if these guys get day 2 draft capital, like they're going to be good players. Like, so it's a super deep class from that aspect. Some good wideouts, some good top heavy wideouts that had great freshman and sophomore season. So I'm excited to jump into these guys and kind of talk about what they're worth and what they'll be worth in the future.
I'm glad you said that. So I'm talking about, you know, we are now on YouTube. We hit our 1,000 followers, you know, within 3 months. Thank you so much for you guys and the support there. You guys can follow us while you're on there. Make sure you guys are asking questions like his Mighty Shield. He just said he's so excited for this. He has 225 first and is going to continue to pivot if my contending team underperforms. And I think you really, really hit it there where we're going to have an opportunity in a one quarterback league to really just change the entire dynasty landscape. You and I have been talking about this for months, where it's like this class is going to reinvent. It's going to reshift the entire dynasty landscape. Chad Parsons said might have 5 running backs drafted in the top 50. Massive boost for 2023. That's crazy, Snoop, because we have not had, I mean, Jonathan Brooks was the only guy to go in that range this year, and I have 5 guys over Jonathan Brooks right now, and I posted that, and people just started blowing up. They're like, that can't be. Like Brooks, you said, is, you know, potential 3 down back and borderline top 10, top 12 CRB, and I'm like, you have Quinshon Judkins, Ollie Gordon, Ashton Jeanty, Treyveon Henderson, Omarion, Hampton. I mean, these guys are going to be household names. We had it in 2017 where it was like, it's Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey. Those guys all became, you know, household names. And that was an area where... And 2020 was...
as well, yeah. JT Swift, Akers...
Yeah.
Clyde, all
that class didn't. Don't warn people. That class didn't pan out. But I compared this a lot closer to 2017 or even 2023. I mean, 2023 we had, you know, we had Bijan and we had Gibbs and we had A-Chain. We really wanted Charbonnet and if he went to a different landing spot. And I think this year's class just is very top heavy. I think it's going to be, but it's deep, right? This 2024 class was shallow and we started trying to say, well, man, I mean, Blake Corum's all right, and you know you got Marshawn Lloyd, he's all right. We're gonna start bumping these guys up. But next year's class, we're talking about real alphas. We're talking about guys that are going to be dynasty RB1s day one. And the prize of the class, you and I both agree right now, is Ollie Gordon. So sell me on Ollie Gordon. You know, and I think Judkins is pretty close, and Junty's really not that far behind. But we both have Ollie Gordon as our RB1 at this point. Talk to me a little bit about where you see him going, you know, what he does well, and then, you know, once he gets into the NFL. Because I think this is a guy that I think between Gordon, Jeanty, and Judkins, we're going to see, you know, they're going to go late round 1, early round 2. And this is the kind of draft capital that we're talking about, absolute stud running backs that change the landscape.
Yeah, Ollie Gordon's crazy. He's one of the big three for me. He won the Doak Walker Award, so that's literally best running back in the country last year. 1,700 plus yards, 300 plus touches. He didn't really do anything as a true freshman. Like he flashed a little bit, but that sophomore year breakout was crazy. He carried that Oklahoma State offense. Like he was that offense, and that's what I like to look for in my college running backs, especially during the like scouting processes. Can they maintain a ton of touches? Like, are they the offense in college? Are they that guy? Like Kenneth Walker was the Michigan State offense when he was there. Like Najee Harris was a huge part of Bama's. ETN was a huge part of Clemson's. Gibbs was a big part of Bama's his last year there. Bijan was Texas's offense. Like, that's what you look for in these running backs. And Ollie Gordon, I mean, he's like a 6'1", 215-pound back, bigger back. He's got that great ability to make defenders miss, and it's seamless, too. He's like Jonathan Brooks in the sense of where he'll just make you miss with such little wiggle and movement. It's all like efficient movement, no wasted time, and he'll just get downhill, and he's fast. He's explosive. He can catch the ball. Had like 39 receptions, and that's ridiculous in college. Like people like you hit that 20 range, and people are like, all right, this guy can catch the ball. Like Ollie Gordon was at that 40 range. He was just an absolute dynamic playmaker for Oklahoma State, and I expect another big year 3 for him, and he's going to declare early and be a top probably 40 pick in the NFL draft.
I think that's huge. You alluded at 39 receptions. We always say guys can catch passes, right? I mean, we're saying that about Brooks. Yep. We said that about Kenneth Walker. They said they can catch passes, but when it happens, you already know it's already there, right? And this is someone at 19 years old as a sophomore, ran for 22 touchdowns and 1,700 plus rushing yards. I mean, he looked phenomenal. He runs a 4.45, and at that size, at 6'2", 216, like this is what we want, right? This is as prototypical RB1 as they come, and the entire running back shifting room. This is why I've been saying to everybody, it's like anybody outside of Hall, Gibbs, CMC, I'm even tearing off of CMC, but Hall, Gibbs, Bijan, maybe ETN and JT, but everybody else I'm tearing off. If I can trade Devon Achane for a random 25 first and Zach Moss, or Zeke, or probably a little bit higher than that, maybe a Jalen Warren, where now all of a sudden I get a pass catching.
You could probably
we're
get
a little bit
Joe Mixon, a Kamara,
probably a late second area. But what I'm saying is we're insulating off of these guys. And if it's a random first and I have an opportunity to get Gordon, Judkins, like this is one where they will be instantly worth more than what Achane is worth next year, more than what Kyron Williams is worth next year. More, like there is a list of those guys that you and I agree right now are worth, 107 to 112, but if you have a workhorse guy coming in next year, like an Ollie Gordon, as opposed to a Kenneth Walker, as opposed to, some of these other guys. You get the production this year, you add a guy that's going to, an Aaron Jones, a James Conner, and you get that 25 first if it's going to be mid. If it's going to be early, that's even better. If it's going to be late, okay, we temper expectations a little bit. But I think Ollie Gordon is someone that instantly, Snoog, I could see being, honestly, kind of like, not quite where we were with Bijan, but at the end of the year, man, I could see him being like RB8 in Dynasty if he goes late round 1, early round 2. Because you're going to see Saquon's going to dip down a little bit. Christian McCaffrey's going to dip down a little bit because of age. And there's a real chance that he goes inside that top 8 if he gets the draft capital in the right landing spot.
Yeah, I said this before, and I've said it a couple of times now. There's going to be 3 running backs that instantly crack the top 12 in the 2025 class, and it's Judkins, Ollie Gordon, and Jeanty. And I'm pretty firmly believing on that because they all have that crazy production. They all broke out as true freshmen or at a young age. They've been their offense on their team. Like, they are the offense. They're that guy carrying that offense. And I'd love to hit this next guy here. Let's talk about Quinshon Judkins. He's actually my RB1 as of right now. Nothing's changed. He's been it for a while now. Mm-hmm. I just think it's rare to get like that type of production as a true freshman and sophomore in the SEC. Like, we don't see that often. And when we do see that, it's a guy that's guaranteed going top 2 rounds in the NFL draft. It's like 1,500 plus yards, double-digit touchdowns as a true freshman, 18 years old, on an Ole Miss team that plays very, very good competition. Mm-hmm. They play Bama. They play all these high-end, like LSUs. They play all these high-end SEC teams. Judkins was Ole Miss's offense there. Next year, 2022, this past year, 2023, this past year, took a little bit of a dip. He wasn't as good as he was as a true freshman, but he was still very, very talented. I just moved my mic.
Yeah, you could hear
Yeah,
Snoop's getting excited here about Judkins.
I had to bring the mic closer.
There we go.
But he's another guy. He hit that 20-plus reception mark. He was that offense. Another 15 touchdown season. He's great around the goal line. He's got all the traits you're looking for in a workhorse back, and now he's literally going to play on the team that should win the national championship. This next year in Ohio State, they've been known for breeding good running backs. Him and Henderson is going to be a great combo, but I think Judkins is definitely a much better player than Henderson is. He's more physical. He gets downhill better. Henderson kind of tends to kick things out. Judkins is RB1 for me because he can just do it all. He's the most patient. He's the most efficient between the tackles. And he has that production in the SEC, not in the Big 12 or not in the whatever. I don't even know what Boise State is. It's like the something, right? They're not the ACC. I think they're like the American or something. So, yeah, that's why Judkins is my RB1. 31 touchdowns in 2 years. You can't beat that.
Yeah, I think we have a nice 1A, 1B situation, and both of them project as a 3-down bell cow, which we don't have in the NFL right now. There are very few. It's few and far between, unlike 2017, where all of them came in and they had that. The last couple of years, we're like, this guy's good at this, but not that. This guy can, he can catch passes, but he's not great between the tackles. This guy's great between the tackles, but he doesn't catch passes. This is another 3-down bell cow, 5'10", 210, prototypical size, runs a little bit slower than Ollie, but at 4.49, he's going to test in that 4.4 area for sure. 2,700 career yards, 34 touchdowns, and I don't think you can go wrong here. I mean, I think, if Gordon has 2 years of production like Judkins does, I think we're probably both on the same page, but we both, love both of these running backs. People started to come up with in the Discord, they started to come up with some ideas of, last year was collapse for Caleb, and I think one of the guys in the Discord put he's sinking for Shador. Another guy said all out for Ollie. Life, who I just said, he said he definitely recommends the Discord. He's in there. Guys have been having a blast in there talking up shop, making sure that you guys are nailing your rookie drafts, getting your trades taken care of, and right now in the Discord, I'm going to flash it up there. We have teamed up with Underdog. So now we will match if you use code SMASHACCEPT, they will match your deposit up to $250, $10 minimum. Make sure you guys do that. Use that code now. Again, SMASHACCEPT, very, very easy to remember. So make sure you guys check that out. So the third guy in this class, you and I both love as well. I think there is a big three, and then there's a mini tier break. I don't think, and I think that mini tier break still has guys that are better than Jonathan Brooks, but I do think we have a spot here where Ashton Jeanty really could be another prize of this class.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites. He might be my favorite. I watched him back maybe like a year ago. Like, who is this Boise State guy that I'm hearing all this noise about? Like, this was like after his true freshman season. I watched him play, and he was just an absolute, he's electric. He's literally what Kareem Hunt on the Chiefs was, but more explosive. Like, that's the type of style of play he is, like that very good pass catcher, great in space. And this past sophomore season, man, it's...
Dude, listen to where he ranks from this. This is why I said be careful trading your 2025 first. Scrimmage yards per game, first. All-purpose yards, third. Receiving yards, first. First downs, first. Missed tackles, first. Yak, first. PFF grade, second. Combined touchdowns, fifth. I mean, he was everything for them. 1,900 all-purpose yards, 19 touchdowns, 621 yards after contact. So I mean, crazy. You look at his tape, and dude, he's him. With all three of these guys, who do you... how do you project these guys as far as comps? Like, who do you see these guys similar to? Because I know everybody likes to look at that and their game. Who do they mirror it off of? What do these guys look like in comparison?
That's a good question. I think Jeanty, I really see that like Kareem Hunt Chiefs comp, but more explosive because he's like that. He's like that 5'9", 210, 215 back. So he's like kind of that like more bowling ball type prototype. But he's so explosive, and he's like a dynamic playmaker. Yeah. 13 yards per catch. Like, we talked about Gordon with that 39 reception mark. He was at like 8. Jeanty's at like 13 and a half. Like, that's crazy. 500 plus yards. He's being used as a legit receiver, not just at the line of scrimmage. And he's still putting up 1,300 plus yards on the ground game. So that's where he kind of excels, is that Kareem Hunt type playmaker where he's that explosive guy after the catch, between the tackles, all around the field. Judkins,
and he's a
to
home
me,
run
is
guy,
like
right?
yeah.
With Hunt is like, we always talked about his long end speed because he ran high 4.5s.
He's a 4.4 guy all day.
4.42 was his last recorded one, which is an
he'll be in
89th
that.
percentile. So he's like, if you take Kareem Hunt and you give him home run speed, because that was the thing, like people used to catch up to Hunt, but he had that nose for the end zone. He had that ability to, to make that one cut, make people miss, and yards after
Aaron
contact.
Jones is a good comp.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Aaron Jones is a good comp. Judkins, Gordon to me is more like that Melvin Gordon type. Like that, he gets downhill, he can catch the ball. He's kind of that do-it-all. He's that bigger back. That's the kind of vibe I get from Ollie Gordon right now. I could probably think of a better one, but that's off the top of my head. And then Judkins to me is just like that do-it-all 3-down workhorse back we see coming out every year. Like that Breece Hall, that Bijan Robinson, like that type of style. Like just can do it all. Good at pass catching, very good between the tackles, efficient. Can run you over, can juke you out. Like he's just one of those type of guys to me. So all three of these guys are going to crack that top 12, top 15 dynasty running back landscape. The day they're drafted, they'll all be top 40, 45 draft picks in my opinion. And I think that they're all complete backs, and that's why they're in their own tier, right? Like there's some other guys that are really good pure runners or really good receiving backs, but they're not as complete as these three guys. And I actually comped Jeanty to the entire, like, Christian McCaffrey, ETN, Jahmyr Gibbs, all these guys coming out of college, Rachaad White, these elite receiving backs. In Jeanty's second year in the league, his receiving numbers are literally like better than every single one of those guys that I just named. So he's like up there with the best of the best from a receiving perspective, and we know what that means in PPR. That's more fantasy points. So that's why we're high on him.
The thing that I love and what it's going to do for the running back landscape is, if you look at guys from 22 to 25, those are our young running backs, those guys that are coming out. There's that tier of Bijan, Gibbs, and Breece, and then there's no one else. And I have it between those three classes, from 22 to 25, including these running backs. I have Gordon and Judkins as the 4-5, A-Chain's in there, and then Jeanty. And I'm like, to say that we're now going to get a second tier, like we have that tier, and then there's such a gap, right? If you're not a win now team, there's a huge gap. We're going to start filling this gap in big time with some young running back studs, because that's what we've been missing in Dynasty for a while. That's why people were, I saw in rookie drafts, some people were pushing Jonathan Brooks all the way up to 106 because they wanted to try to get a running back. And it's like, dude, chill, wait a little bit. Make sure you get yourself into a class like this, because now we have, and then, after Jeanty, I think we have a tier break, but I really like Omarion Hampton. I really like Treyveon Henderson. I think both have what it takes to be an RB1 in this league, more of a 1A, 1B as opposed to a true 3-down bell cow. But I think in the right situation, both of these guys could thrive as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd throw Nick Singleton in that group as well. He had a phenomenal freshman season, elite athlete, great receiving back. I think just Penn State's holding him back with how they're using him in Ketron Island. There's two NFL ready, like, top 4-round draft picks in that.
And Singleton was in that same tier up there as those big dogs after his freshman year. But this past year, Penn State offense was gross, and that really held him back.
It just held him back a little bit. But Henderson to me, like, I'll just go comp real quick. Kenneth Walker, elite athlete, great at making people miss in open space, tends to kick things out a little too much sometimes. That's where he lacks. But he has a little bit of power, a little bit of everything. He has that elite elusiveness that you're looking for. He's the guy that can fit today's game. His only issue that's been holding him back is health. Like, can Treyveon Henderson stay healthy? We'll find out. That's probably going to kick his draft capital back a little bit. Like, he might be a third-round pick or like that late third-round pick, that late day 2 guy now because of that. But
if he came out this year, he was the RB1, right?
Yeah,
like it wasn't even, we weren't even debating it.
Yeah.
Like he was going to be that guy.
Yeah, he had like 1,200 yards as a true freshman on Ohio State with like 180 carries. And he hit that like 300 plus receiving yard, 27 receptions. Like, he can do it all. He can do a little bit of everything. And he's just another really talented, pure runner, elite athlete. And that's what you're looking for. Like, that's the upside that you want. And that's what you can project as a day 2 pick. Like, he's going to run in the 4.4s. He's going to be a guy that can make a ton of people miss. And teams are going to have some type of role for him in an offense. So that's why Treyveon's a guy I really like. We touched on Singleton, another guy, elite athlete, great in space, good receiving back. Omarion Hampton's interesting. I haven't gotten to dive into him too much, but he seems like he's just that bigger, brawling, like
Yeah.
bowling ball, explosive running back
Yes.
that
6
can do a
foot
little bit
220,
of
man.
everything. Yeah, he can catch
Yeah.
the ball. He's kind of a big guy, so I'm excited to dive into him more. A little less competition there in the ACC, but he's right there. I mean, the top 6 guys we talked about, other guys like Damian Martinez, Jaden Ott from California. The list goes on. Katron Allen, like we could talk about this running back class for days on end.
Yeah, and I mean Hampton, I really love because he's got that prototypical size. He finishes off runs,
Yep.
great vision, initial burst. I mean, that's a 220-pound guy running a 4.4. You know, like, and this is what we want. We want athletes. We want guys that can catch passes. This is someone that I'm excited about as well. And this isn't just these 5. I mean, there's other running backs in this class where you're just like, you know what?
Devin Neal.
I'm excited. Yeah, I mean, Devin
He
Neal's
was
one I
another
like.
one that could have been RB1 in this class if he declared. He would have been up there, like top 4 for sure.
Absolutely. Jaden Ott, Donovan Edwards, you know, like Damian Martinez,
I love him.
Trevor Etienne, Taj Brooks, DJ Gidden, Raheem Sanders. I mean, like, this is a class where I'm just like, I just start naming off names and I get excited. Where this year I was like, all right, so who's it going to be? You know, I kind of like Brooks. I like Corum. You know, like, we're going to start working your guy. I like Benson. But who are you going to start promoting in that area? And I think a lot of people, you know, are trying to look at trades like this, like, should you try to trade Trey Benson in a second for a first? And I'm not quite there yet because I do think Benson got a great landing spot. You know, I think all of the running backs here, Corum, Benson, Lloyd, you know, and who am I missing there? Brooks. They all got
Brooks, yeah.
landing spots with clear paths to opportunity. So that's the next part of this is like your running backs need that opportunity. They need to get to the right landing spot. I know you talked about Devin Neal, so let's hit on him real quick. And then I want to, you know, kind of go over some of our wide receivers because you and I could talk running backs on this class for days, you know, like, but I think we start to, after those top 5, we want to see what they can do this year. I think there are legitimately 9 more guys that you could say have RB1 potential in Dynasty.
Yeah, Devin Neal's fun. He's a guy that is a good receiving back. He's very, very elusive after the catch. He reminds me of Tajay Spears. I think that's a pretty good comp for him. Broke out as a true freshman at Kansas, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons after that. He's a guy that kind of can just do a little bit of everything, a little bit smaller of a back. He's probably going to come in at like 5'10", 205, so another great reason to comp him to Tajay. He's going to be a day 2 guy, or at worst, like a 4th-round guy if all goes well for him. But he's a guy that I truly think would have been a top 3 running back in this past class. I think he's very polished. Doesn't have like workhorse size, but he's going to have a role on some type of offense in the NFL. I'm a fan of his. He's not like my favorite, but I think he's a guy that's definitely going to be in that top 8 to 10, top 6, 7 in this running back class for me. Etienne, I don't really talk about much because I truly just think he's going to stay another year at Georgia. Like, why wouldn't he? And just be like a 4th-year guy. All signs point towards that. Like, he's going to be that guy in Georgia's offense. Like, he should just stay another year and go next year when the class is weaker.
Yeah, I really like Jaden Ott because we're talking about, you know, guys that are dual threats. He ran for 1,300 yards, but the big thing is he had 26 receptions, someone with an impressive 5.3 yards per carry. So it's like, I'm looking for those guys that are natural pass catchers because in today's NFL, it's like you start to look at what an RB1 is, right? And every single one of them had 50 plus, you know, receptions or 50 plus targets in that area. And as a guy that we want to make sure we're getting that kind of, you know, opportunity. And he's someone that I think could do that. So
yeah.
I love the running back class. You love the running back class. In your 1 quarterback leagues, this is the perfect year to rebuild or retool. I'm telling everybody, like, honestly, you go out there and you guys know from my rebuilds, we talked about it in 2022. We were adding wide receivers, 2023 running backs, 4 rebuilds, 4 titles. You know, like that was easy. The writing was on the wall. It's on the wall again. If you rebuild in 2024 for 2025 and you upgrade all your wide receivers and you add these guys in and you get Gordon, Judkins, Jeanty, like I was getting, you know, Bijan, Gibbs, and A-Chain, boom, championships. It's that easy. Like, secure up your running back, or secure up your wide receivers, secure up your quarterbacks, upgrade there, and add these running backs, and you are going to absolutely dominate for the next decade. You know, like, you're going to absolutely crush it. Now, let's talk a little bit about the wide receiver class, because Snook, I hear people saying, you know what, like I'm not in on this. You know, I feel like this is a class where it's all running backs, and that's really not the case. You know, I put out today like my combined rankings of the classes for between 2023 and 2025, and you know, Harrison, Nakua, Neighbors, they're in a tier by themselves. You know, I don't think we have guys of that level, but it's close. I have Odunze at 4, and then 5 and 6, I have Luther Burden Jr. and Tetairoa McMillan. I think these guys are going to be absolute studs, but they do it in completely different ways. So let's start with Luther Burden. You know, Luther Burden is a guy that's going to kill it in the screen games. He's going to be an up short yak machine. I mean, tell me what you like about Luther Burden, and you know, in a lot of classes, a lot of people right now, and you and I are both very heavy on the running backs. You know, I was listening to Dynasty Nerds and a couple other places that, you know, talking about 2025, they have him as the 101 already, and that's what's, you know, this year I think 1 through 6. You're loaded, right? Like I think Superflex 1 through 6 right now are gonna be studs. There is no true 101 this year. You know, some people say it's Gordon, some people have Judkins, some people have Burden, some people are starting to, you know, rumor out there of Shador Sanders, but Luther Burden is going to be an alpha wide receiver.
Yeah, he's great. He's a good player. He broke out as a sophomore. He flashed as a freshman. He's that guy that can kind of do a little bit of everything. Great after the screen catch. Like he's great at making people miss. He's kind of a yak monster. Wins downfield. He kind of does a little bit of everything. So that's kind of what separates him a little bit from some guys, is he's just very versatile, and that's what the offenses in the NFL want to see nowadays. But I think with him, like he projects as that guy that can come in and be like that. I'm not saying he's gonna be Amon-Ra St. Brown, but like that's kind of like his skill set a little bit, like that guy that can win all in those short areas, win after the catch with his legs, like good route runner, just do a little bit of everything. Like he Jackson Smith and Jigba is like another guy that he's kind of like just that type of player, but he also wins downfield. He's physical. He's more physical than all those guys, and he's probably gonna be like 210. So he's like a Deebo Samuel type of friggin' build.
That's what I was going to say. You were right on with Amon-Ra St. Brown and the way he runs his routes. But once he gets the ball in his hands, he reminds me a lot of Deebo. Like the way he just explodes. I mean, you look at what he did. 86 receptions this past season, 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, third in all of the NCAA and PFF grade. 3.29 yards per route run. That's elite. 8.4 yards after catch. I mean, this is someone that you're going to just jump in there and you get him in the right offense. And this is someone where it's like Jaden Reed on steroids, you know, like Deebo Samuel's,
that's a good high floor comp.
Exactly, right? Like I think Amon-Ra was like the ceiling there, but a little bit stronger. Jaden Reed plus, you know, like not even close to being that area, but he's going to be considerably higher, and it plays in a similar style. So, I mean, this is someone that I'm excited. You get him in that, I want to say Buffalo, or you get him in an offense with an elite quarterback that's going to give him an opportunity to get out there and, you know, obviously do what he does best with his yards after catch. Luther Burden is my current wide receiver 1 of this class, but McMillan is close, man. I'm looking at stuff. I'm watching it. Obviously, completely different type wide receivers. 5'10" versus 6'5". A guy that, you know, when I looked at McMillan, I'm like, this might be. You and I love him. It's been 10 straight years of 1,000 yards. This might be our next Mike Evans. Like, this guy's unbelievable when it comes to contested catches. His size reminds me a lot of Mike Evans, the way he plays his game. And this is someone that definitely also belongs in that 101 conversation. So you're going to have 3 running backs and 2 wide receivers who belong in that 101 conversation. Talk to me a little bit about McMillan.
Yeah, he's that T. Higgins, Drake London, Mike Evans type. Like, he is absolutely phenomenal downfield. Broke out as a true freshman with like 800 yards on like 39 catches. So he was just winning downfield at a very high rate, over 18 yards per catch. Yeah. Almost double-digit touchdowns. He hit 8. This past year, though, like his game evolved. Like he took that next step as a sophomore. Hit like 90 receptions, 1,400 yards, double-digit touchdowns. Like, this is where we saw him start making more plays, start winning more routes off the line of scrimmage, being more physical downfield. Like, he's that type of guy that when that ball's in the air, that's his ball. Like, he is a 70-30, 80-20 jump ball winner, and in college at least. And this offense, like, Jacob Cowan was a 4th round pick in a stacked wide receiver class. Like, he was playing with NFL talent in that same receiving room, and he outproduced Jacob Cowing. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Is like, are these receivers playing with other NFL receivers, and what are they doing in comparison? He absolutely blew the doors off Jacob Cowing in terms of production. So this is another reason why McMillan's going to be a guy that's in that combo for that 101. And in that combo, if not, there's a day. I think if I had to set it today, I like him over Burden to project as at least like just a like NFL talent. Like his game's more complete in my opinion. Like he's just projects as that true alpha wide receiver one, that like that Drake London, that T Higgins, that Mike Evans. If you can get a guy like this in like in Josh Allen's hands or in like a Patrick Mahomes' hands where he has his guy that he can rely on, like Keon Coleman can be that guy, but he does not have anything close to McMillan in terms of natural separation, winning routes downfield. Like his completion is like what people want Keon Coleman to be, like what people think Keon Coleman is. Like Keon Coleman's super raw. He never had the production. McMillan already has the production, and he's like 20 years old. So that's why I'm all on McMillan.
He killed it. I mean, 2023, you look at wide receivers who posted 100-plus targets, 80-plus receptions, 10 touchdowns, 400 yak, 0.8 EPA, and a 2.8 yards per route run. It's Neighbors, Harrison, Franklin, Adunze, and McMillan. Like, he was the only guy that not drafted that to post those kind of things. This is someone that's going to absolutely dominate, you know, in 2024, and I think is going to be just that centerpiece wide receiver. I think both of these guys have foundational wide receiver upside. You know, these guys project as mid first round, you know, NFL draft picks. There's a couple other guys in this class that I like from the wide receiver position. I mean, I think Burden and McMillan are the alphas out of this class, but there's another guy, Ohio State, you know, the next Ohio State wide receiver who you and I liked if he was coming out this year. You know, this year he was probably wide receiver 4, you know, but there's a really good chance he comes out next year to some progression and maybe gets himself into the same conversation as the other 2 wide receivers.
Yeah, it's Emeka Egbuka, and he had that crazy sophomore season there with CJ Stroud and Marvin Harrison Jr. He was right there competing with Marv for targets, yards, touchdowns, everything. He's kind of like plays similar to like that JSN, like that Garrett Wilson, that Chris Olave type where he wins across the middle and underneath a lot. He's that natural route runner. He has phenomenal hands. Like he can catch anything and everything coming his way through contact, tracking the ball over his shoulder. He's probably not going to be like a Garrett Wilson or a Chris Olave, but for me, like, Egbuka's a really safe prospect. Like I think he's like that Terry McLaurin type. Like he's gonna be a guy that cracks 1,000 yards a couple seasons. Like very consistent wide receiver that can elevate himself to be like a guy talked about in that top 20 range. But I don't think he'll be like blowing the doors off the NFL. Like I think he's a guy that's just gonna be a really safe prospect. You know what you're gonna get from him. There's gonna be upside, but there's not gonna be like the ceiling as the upside. Like I think he's a guy like you said. Like I mean, last year he was battling absolute injuries and playing with Kyle McCord. It was the Marv show last year. Egbuka, I think he kind of realized like, all right, I'll take my seat out and I'll lead this room next year. I'll be that guy. I'll get drafted in round 1 or round 2. He's great, man. Like he's 6'1". He's got that like 200+ pound frame. Good yak player. He's a super safe fantasy asset.
Right now projected 4.3040, great size speed combination. I think, you know, this is someone who could be an elite wide receiver given the opportunity. This is his year to shine. Another guy who's running into those 4.3s who I know you like a lot, Evan Stewart, obviously a versatile wide receiver, could make an immediate impact. He's made for today's NFL, right? Super quick, super fast. Sell me on Evan Stewart.
Yeah, he was my favorite, like as a true freshman. Like he is so talented. He reminds me of that like Devontae Smith light comp. Like he's like that, or like that Worthy. Like he's like that 6 foot smaller frame guy. He's gonna be like 170s, like that Jordan Addison. Absolutely great freshman season, 600+ yards, 50+ receptions with literally no quarterback there. And then this past year he took a little bit of a dip. The quarterback play, the team sucked. I think everything held him back. He realized it was time for a new beginning. Now he's joining Oregon with Dylan Gabriel. They're going to put up numbers together. Like, Dylan Gabriel could legitimately, I don't think he's a good NFL prospect, but I think he's a good college player and a good college quarterback for a wideout that you want to throw him the ball. He's going to be a guy that probably throws for 3,500 to almost 4,000 yards this year. He's a vet. He's a very smart quarterback. Evan Stewart's going to blow the doors
off. Two guys,
off.
Right? There's two Oregon wide receivers here who are in the top 10, both Tez Johnson and Evan Stewart. I mean, this offense is going to be electric, so we could see some really big things from the two of these guys.
Yep. Evan Stewart's just an elite route runner. He's going to win downfield, very fast player, 5-star recruit. Checks the box on everything. He's the guy that literally, like, could jump into that wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 spot in this class with a big year. Like, I wouldn't be shocked. He's comfortably behind those two guys we talked about earlier for me, right there with Egbuka for 3 and 4. But another guy I'd like to highlight is Isaiah Bond. He's a guy that could be a big riser. He's going to lead that Texas offense in that receiving room. He's very good natural route runner. He's just a safe player. He's like a John Mechie, one of those type of guys, right? Like, good route runner, slot guy, speedy, wins downfield. He's going to be Quinn's go-to guy in a Power 5 heavy offense that's going to be contending for that title. Bond's going to be a big riser this year for me.
Yeah, and then you got Nick Anderson in there too as well. I mean, this is going to be not Nick Anderson in the Magic, who, man, it's just flashbacks of missing those free throws. If you're old enough to remember that in the Shaq days, you know, there we go. But so the wide receiver class, obviously, you know, I don't think it is in comparison. We have 3 or 4 guys up at the top, but it's not the same as this year. This year's class was super deep. You know, so in comparison, you know, you're going to get some guys that are in there, but I think this is, like we keep saying, this is the year that you want to build up on those wide receivers this year, get those running backs next year. The quarterback class is the only difference. So that's why we're saying when you're playing, if you're rebuilding in a 1 quarterback, you have a cheat code this year. If you're rebuilding in a Superflex league, and this is what's become very difficult, is you had Caleb Williams last year, you had CJ Stroud 2 years ago, you had Anthony Richardson 2 years ago, and now I don't think you have that. You know, you might have a couple guys who are solid, you know, some guys that probably project what in that QB 12 to 15 range in Dynasty, maybe doubtful, you know what I mean? Because this year, I mean, Daniels and Caleb Williams instantly jump into that top 15, and McCarthy and Drake May jump into that top 20, and I think I would be hard-pressed to find Shedeur Sanders or Carson Beck passing Drake May. I just don't see it. You know, like, talent-wise, these guys are not there. But they're going to be guys that are going to go round 1 of the NFL draft, likely. They're guys that are going to go round 1 in your Superflex drafts. I just say, Snoog, right now, if I can tear up off of some of these other guys and get myself to 2 elite quarterbacks, so then when it comes time to draft time and everybody starts pushing Sanders up, everybody starts pushing Beck up, then I'm just going to say, you know what? I have no problem taking Burden at 106, because it's going to happen in leagues. You know, people get excited for running backs, they get excited for quarterbacks, and then every year you get a Jamar Chase, a Chris Olave, you know, a Jackson Smith and Jigba. You know, every year those wide receivers, Rome Odunze went too late this year. So you're going to get wide receiver values. So start to build those quarterback rooms up now. But let's talk about either of these guys. Do you like, you know, who is your QB1 of the class? And is there anybody that, you know, is a dark horse guy that I missed there?
Yeah, I think it's definitely between Sanders and Beck for me for that 1 spot. I think both are pro caliber quarterbacks. I'd like to see them take the next step, though. I think Shedeur has a higher ceiling in the NFL. I think he's a better improviser and he's a better field general than Carson Beck is. I think there's a lot more upside with Sanders as well. I think Quinn Ewers is bad that has a ton of talent. Like, he has a ton of talent that's just, like, locked inside this box that he needs to, like, let loose. But I think he just, this quarterback class stinks.
I mean, it's Jalen Milroe, Connor Wegman, Riley Leonard. I just don't like it. So you know, I do think Carson Beck, when it's all said and done, and Shedeur Sanders will be round 1 NFL running or quarterbacks. Shedeur Sanders has, you know, he's great in the pocket of trying to create more space, throwing on the run. He has really good accuracy. Took a ton of sacks. I mean, and that wasn't all him. You know, that offensive line was horrible. So I think there are many scouts that think if Shedeur Sanders gets an improved offensive line and matures a little bit more, could be the 101 or at least the top 5 overall pick in this class, and that would be huge because that would, create that opportunity to kind of move around for you to get your quarterback. So I think, again, we just keep talking about this. This is upper level thinking. Everyone else is just can't see past the nose of their face, and they're just saying, well, this is who I want this year. This is who I want next year. It's like, you got to sometimes look at, this is the 24 class, and this is what they're great at. This is their warts. This is what we're doing. So you got to start playing chess when other people are playing checkers. You got to start saying, okay, Drake May and even JJ McCarthy, I have over both of these guys. And I think Beck and Sanders could pass McCarthy, but they're not going to pass May in my estimation, and I just don't see it. So if you can go and you can add to get to one of these other guys, so you can add up to Daniels, you can get yourself, any of these quarterbacks. Justin Herbert is way too cheap. Kyler Murray's way too cheap. There's so many guys in that top 15 that people are not valuing the right way, where next year you get a stud running back and you get those stud wide receivers in this class.
Exactly, yeah. And that's what it comes down to, understanding the strengths and the weaknesses of these rookie drafts. Like in 2025 or 4 last year, we knew it was fade RBs unless one of them goes round 2, and one of them went round 2, and then we bumped them up, right? That's what it comes down to. Prioritize the strengths. 2023, we knew it was just a good class overall. We knew there was good quarterbacks, good wideouts, good running backs, like good tight ends. Like, you just got to know the strengths of the class, man.
Yeah, and tight end, again, is very similar to quarterback here. I mean, Colston Loveland, Mitchell Evans, Luke Leachy, Tyler Warren, it's going to be okay, right? But I don't see, there is not a Brock Bowers in this one, then there's not that elite level next guy, but there's going to be some solid tight ends. So we just kind of wanted to give you a quick rundown here of what we're looking at for the 2025 class. Wanted to tell you guys about, making sure you're not trading those 2025 firsts for peanuts. And I think a lot of you are understanding that. In startups, I'm still seeing them traded pretty regularly. They should be valued at a 5th round startup level because, we've seen it historically in 2023 and 2024. 8 out of those 12 guys have been in that same area after drafted. They're going to be in that area only, ascending in value. I'm seeing, Snoog, that the 2025 seconds are being thrown around like candy in startups, and I think that's always the way to go at this point in the game, is you can get those 25 seconds for nothing. Like, you can go, like, people are wanting to win right now, and if I'm not in a win now mode, or I have tons of extra running backs, trading your Aaron Jones, your James Connors before it gets to be too late, getting a 25 second plus for those guys is the way to go, because I think this class it's not as deep as 2024, but there are guys that are going to pop out of the woodwork. We named 14 running backs here who, man, could you imagine? You got 14 running backs plus maybe 6 or 7 wide receivers. You sprinkle in 3 or 4 quarterbacks. Now all of a sudden you're getting some of these running backs that we really love in the late first, in the mid second, in the late second. So I think the play for me right now is buy 25 twos.
Yep, exactly. Especially in those startups where you can move back around and get a second and a third on top. It's like, if you can understand the tiers and the gaps in those rounds and startups, and you can absolutely fleece your league mates in multiple trades. So keep an eye on that as well.
For sure. And before we close, just reminding you again, make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Hit us up on there. Obviously, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, all that kind of stuff. But we are now working with Underdog. Make sure you guys go over to Underdog Fantasy. Put in code SMASH accept. You will get a double deposit. Minimum $10, maximum up to $250. So thanks again for tuning in, guys, and enjoy the process.